The ancient Middle East is one of the most fascinating regions in human history. It's a place where great civilizations flourished, and some of the world's most influential religious traditions were born. Among the most well-known stories from this region is that of Abraham, a key figure in the three major monotheistic religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. While many people are familiar with the story of his son Isaac and the 12 tribes of Israel, fewer know about Abraham's firstborn son, Ishmael, and the 12 tribes that descended from him. In this article, we will explore the 12 tribes of Ishmael in detail, uncovering their origins, locations, and influence in the ancient world. We'll look at historical and archaeological evidence to paint a clearer picture of who these tribes were, where they lived, and how they shaped the Middle East. By the end of this exploration, you'll see how Ishmael and his descendants played a significant role in shaping the cultures and societies of the region, with their influence still seen today. But before we dive into the story of Ishmael and his descendants, it's important to understand the larger context. The story of the 12 tribes of Ishmael begins with Abraham, a man whose faith and family have had an enormous impact on world history. Abraham's story is central to the sacred texts of the Bible, the Quran, and other ancient records, making him a common ancestor in the faiths of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. His journey, filled with promises from God, complex family dynamics, and faith, sets the stage for the birth of Ishmael and the eventual formation of his 12 tribes. Abraham's life and the covenant with God. Abraham, originally known as Abram, lived in a time when polytheism, belief in many gods, was common. He grew up in the city of Ur in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, where people worshipped a variety of gods. But Abraham was different. According to the Bible, he was called by one God, Yahweh, to leave his homeland and go to a place that God would show him. This place would eventually be known as the land of Canaan, modern-day Israel and Palestine. God made a promise, or covenant, with Abraham. This covenant is a central theme in the Bible and the Quran. God told Abraham that he would be the father of many nations, that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky, and that through him all the nations of the earth would be blessed. This promise was remarkable because at the time, Abraham and his wife Sarah were childless, and they were both very old. Despite this, Abraham believed in God's promise. After many years of waiting and still no children, Sarah, Abraham's wife, became anxious. She was well beyond childbearing age, and she didn't see how God's promise could come true. So, in a move that was common in ancient times but would later cause family tension, Sarah offered her Egyptian servant Hagar to Abraham as a surrogate. Hagar became pregnant and gave birth to a son, Ishmael. Ishmael's birth was important because he was Abraham's firstborn son. In ancient cultures, the firstborn son often had special privileges and was seen as the heir to his father's legacy. However, this wasn't the end of Abraham's story with children. God's promise wasn't just for any child. It was specifically tied to Sarah. And although Sarah was well past the age of having children, God promised that she too would bear a son. When Ishmael was about 13 years old, a miracle happened. Sarah became pregnant and gave birth to a son, Isaac. While this was a joyous occasion for Abraham and Sarah, it also caused tension within the family. As Ishmael grew, Sarah became increasingly uncomfortable with the idea of him sharing the inheritance with her son, Isaac. According to the Bible, Sarah asked Abraham to send Hagar and Ishmael away. Although this was a difficult decision for Abraham, God assured him that Ishmael would also be blessed and that he too would father a great nation. Hagar and Ishmael were sent into the desert where they nearly perished from thirst. But God heard Ishmael's cries and provided water for them. In this way, Ishmael's name, which means God will hear, became significant. God promised Hagar that her son would survive and go on to become the father of 12 princes who would form a great nation. The story of Ishmael is told differently in the Bible and the Quran, but both traditions agree on several key points. In both accounts, Ishmael is Abraham's firstborn son, and he plays an important role in God's plan for the world. In the Bible, Ishmael is somewhat overshadowed by Isaac, who is seen as the child of promise through whom the Jewish people would come. However, the Bible still acknowledges God's blessing on Ishmael and his descendants. In the Quran, Ishmael is a central figure. He is considered a prophet and is credited, along with Abraham, with building the Kaaba, the most sacred site in Islam, located in Mecca. For Muslims, Ishmael is the ancestor of the Arab people, and his story is an important part of the Islamic faith. The different perspectives on Ishmael in these religious traditions highlight his importance not only as a historical figure, but also as a symbol of God's faithfulness and blessing. Whether through the lens of the Bible or the Quran, Ishmael's story is one of survival, resilience, and the fulfillment of divine promises. Abraham's legacy and the lineage of Ishmael. As Abraham's firstborn son, Ishmael's legacy is intertwined with that of his father. God's promise to Abraham that he would be the father of many nations was fulfilled not only through Isaac and the Israelites, but also through Ishmael and his descendants. Ishmael's 12 sons would go on to form the 12 tribes of Ishmael, spreading across the Middle East and North Africa, playing a crucial role in the history of the region. Although the story of Ishmael and his descendants is often less well known than that of Isaac and the Israelites, it is no less significant. The 12 tribes of Ishmael helped shape the cultural, religious, and political landscape of the ancient world, and their legacy continues to influence the Middle East today. When Ishmael was born, God made several significant promises to Abraham concerning his firstborn son. These promises are recorded in the Bible, particularly in the book of Genesis. Even though Isaac was the son through whom God's covenant with Abraham would continue, Ishmael was not forgotten. God made a distinct set of promises specifically for Ishmael, ensuring that he would have a blessed and influential future. One of the key promises made to Ishmael is found in Genesis 17:20, where God says to Abraham, "As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will surely bless him. I will make him fruitful and will greatly increase his numbers. He will be the father of 12 rulers, and I will make him into a great nation." This passage is significant for several reasons. First, God acknowledges that he has heard Abraham's concern for Ishmael. This echoes the meaning of Ishmael's name, which is God will hear. Despite the complex family dynamics and the favor placed on Isaac, God reassures Abraham that Ishmael too will be blessed. One of the most important aspects of this promise is that Ishmael would father 12 sons, often referred to as princes or rulers. These 12 sons would go on to form the 12 tribes of Ishmael, similar to how Jacob's 12 sons became the leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel. This promise ensured that Ishmael's descendants would not only be numerous, but also influential, spreading across a wide region and establishing their presence as powerful tribes. These tribes, as we'll explore later in this article, played a significant role in the history of the ancient Middle East, especially in trade and commerce. Ishmael's descendants became known for their adaptability, their nomadic lifestyle, and their ability to thrive in some of the harshest environments in the world. The promise that Ishmael would become a great nation is central to his story. While Isaac's descendants would form the nation of Israel, Ishmael's descendants would spread far and wide, encompassing large parts of the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. This is reflected in the historical expansion of the Ishmaelite tribes, which we will discuss in more detail later in the article. God's blessing on Ishmael ensured that his descendants would be fruitful and prosperous. This is seen in the historical record where the Ishmaelites became a dominant force in the regions they inhabited. Their influence extended not only through their military and political presence, but also through their role as traders and merchants, connecting different parts of the Middle East and North Africa. The promises made to Ishmael are not only important in the Bible, but also play a significant role in the Quran. In Islamic tradition, Ishmael, known as Ismail in Arabic, is considered a prophet and the ancestor of the Arab people. He is seen as a key figure in the fulfillment of God's plan, and his life is celebrated for its trials and triumphs. According to Islamic tradition, Ishmael's role goes beyond simply being Abraham's firstborn. He is believed to have helped Abraham in the construction of the Kaaba, the most sacred site in Islam, located in Mecca. The Quran describes how Abraham and Ishmael worked together to raise the foundations of the Kaaba, making Ishmael a crucial figure in the spiritual history of the Muslim world. The Islamic view of Ishmael emphasizes his importance as a prophet and a key figure in the establishment of the Arab people. The Quran highlights the trials that Ishmael and his mother Hagar faced, including their time in the desert when they were sent away by Abraham. Islamic tradition holds that God provided for them in their time of need, miraculously providing water from the Zamzam well, a site that remains a key part of the Hajj pilgrimage to this day. The fact that Ishmael fathered 12 sons who became the leaders of 12 tribes is not just a historical fact, but also carries symbolic meaning. In many religious traditions, the number 12 holds special significance. In the Bible, for example, we see the 12 sons of Jacob forming the 12 tribes of Israel, which became the foundation of the nation of Israel. In the New Testament, Jesus chose 12 apostles to spread his teachings. The number 12 often symbolizes completeness and divine order. In the case of Ishmael, the 12 princes represent the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham that Ishmael would father a great nation. It also signifies that Ishmael's descendants would play a crucial role in the history of the region, just as the 12 tribes of Israel did. The parallels between the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 tribes of Ishmael are interesting to note. Both sets of tribes emerged from the lineage of Abraham, and both played significant roles in the history of the Middle East. However, while the 12 tribes of Israel are more well known due to their central role in the Bible, the 12 tribes of Ishmael have a history that is just as rich and deserving of attention. Who were Ishmael's 12 sons? According to the Bible, Ishmael's 12 sons are listed in Genesis 25, 13, 15. These sons became the founders of 12 tribes, often referred to as the 12 princes of Ishmael. Each of these sons has a unique story and significance, with their descendants spreading throughout the Middle East and beyond. Let's take a closer look at each of these 12 sons and what is known about them. Nebajoth, the firstborn of Ishmael, is often associated with the Nabateans, an ancient people who became famous for their trade routes and impressive city building, especially the city of Petra in Jordan. The Nabateans controlled a vast area stretching from the Arabian Peninsula to the Levant, and were known for their skills in trade, particularly in spices and incense. Kadar is one of the most frequently mentioned sons of Ishmael in historical records. His descendants, known as the Kadarites, were a powerful nomadic tribe that inhabited the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula. The Kadarites were skilled traders and are mentioned in the Bible as dealing in livestock, particularly sheep and goats. They also appear in Assyrian records as a significant political and military force. Adbel's tribe is thought to have settled in the northern Arabian Peninsula, possibly in the region near the Sinai Peninsula. Not much is known about Adbel's descendants, but they are believed to have been involved in trade and commerce, as were many of the other Ishmaelite tribes. Mibsam, little is known about the tribe of Mibsam, but it is believed that they settled in the region of northern Arabia. Like many of the Ishmaelite tribes, they likely played a role in the thriving trade routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula with the Mediterranean world. Mishma's descendants are believed to have settled in the central part of the Arabian Peninsula. Some scholars speculate that the name Mishma may be linked to certain ancient cities or regions in the Arabian desert, but definitive evidence is scarce. Duma's tribe is associated with the city of Duma, which is mentioned in both the Bible and Assyrian records. Duma was located in the northern Arabian desert and became an important center for trade and communication between the Arabian Peninsula and the Levant. The tribe of Masa is mentioned in various ancient texts, including Assyrian records. Masa's descendants are believed to have lived in the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula, near the borders of modern-day Jordan and Syria. The tribe of Hadad is believed to have settled in the southern part of the Arabian Peninsula. Some historians suggest that the name Hadad may be linked to an ancient storm god worshipped in the region, but it is unclear whether this has any direct connection to the tribe itself. The descendants of Teima settled in the region of northern Arabia near the modern-day city of Teima in Saudi Arabia. Teima was an important oasis city and a major stop on the trade routes that passed through the Arabian desert. Jetur's tribe is mentioned in the Bible and is believed to have inhabited the region east of the Jordan River in modern-day Jordan. They were a significant tribe in the region and are sometimes mentioned in connection with other nomadic groups. Nafish's descendants are believed to have lived in the eastern part of the Arabian Peninsula, possibly near the Persian Gulf. Like many of the other Ishmaelite tribes, they were likely involved in trade and commerce. The tribe of Kadema is thought to have settled in the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula, near the borders of modern-day Iraq and Syria. They are mentioned in various ancient records, but little is known about their specific activities. The descendants of Ishmael, known as the Ishmaelites, lived a life that was primarily nomadic, a reflection of the desert environment they inhabited. Their daily lives were shaped by the harsh conditions of the Arabian Peninsula, and they developed a way of life that allowed them to thrive in one of the world's most arid and challenging regions. Let's take a closer look at the everyday lives of the Ishmaelites, from their nomadic lifestyle to their role in trade and commerce. The Ishmaelites were primarily nomads, meaning they moved from place to place rather than settling permanently in one location. This nomadic lifestyle was essential for survival in the desert, where resources like water and grazing land for livestock were scarce and often required seasonal movement. The harsh desert environment meant that the Ishmaelites had to constantly adapt, finding new ways to survive and thrive. Their livelihood revolved around herding animals, particularly sheep, goats, and camels. Camels, in particular, were vital to their way of life, as they could travel long distances in the desert without needing much water. This made them ideal for transportation and trade. Camels were also used for carrying goods, which made the Ishmaelites important players in the long-distance trade routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula with the rest of the ancient world. The tents of the Ishmaelites were made from goat or camel hair, providing protection from the desert heat during the day and the cold at night. These tents could be easily packed up and transported as the tribe moved from one grazing area to another. Inside, the tents were divided into separate areas for men, women, and children, reflecting the traditional family structure of the time. Life for the Ishmaelites was communal, with the tribe functioning as an extended family. Decisions were typically made by tribal elders or leaders, often referred to as princes in the Bible. These leaders were responsible for ensuring the well-being of the tribe, making decisions about where to move, and organizing trade expeditions. While the Ishmaelites were primarily nomads, they were also well known for their role in trade. The Arabian Peninsula was a key location for trade routes that connected the Mediterranean world with Africa, India, and the Far East. The Ishmaelites, with their knowledge of the desert and their ability to survive in harsh conditions, became expert traders, particularly in goods such as spices, incense, gold, and other luxury items that were highly valued in ancient times. One of the most important trade routes in the region was the incense route, which ran through the Arabian Peninsula, connecting the kingdoms of southern Arabia, modern-day Yemen and Oman, with the Mediterranean. The Ishmaelites played a key role in transporting goods along this route, using their camels to carry large quantities of incense, spices, and other valuable items across the desert. This made them wealthy and influential, as they controlled the flow of goods that were in high demand across the ancient world. In addition to spices and incense, the Ishmaelites were also involved in the trade of livestock, textiles, and precious metals. Their ability to move goods across long distances made them essential to the economies of the surrounding regions. The Bible even mentions the Ishmaelites in the story of Joseph, where Joseph's brothers sold him to an Ishmaelite caravan that was on its way to Egypt. Genesis 37:25-28. This highlights the Ishmaelites' prominent role as traders and merchants in the ancient world. The Ishmaelites, like many other nomadic peoples, were organized into tribes and extended family units. The tribe functioned as both a social and economic unit, with each member playing a specific role in the survival of the group. Men were responsible for herding livestock, protecting the tribe, and engaging in trade, while women took care of the household, including tasks like cooking, weaving, and raising children. Marriage was an important institution among the Ishmaelites, with strong family ties helping to maintain the stability and continuity of the tribe. Marriages were often arranged within the tribe, and large extended families were common. Children were highly valued as they represented the future of the tribe and were essential for continuing the nomadic lifestyle. The leadership of the tribe was typically held by a patriarch, often one of the descendants of Ishmael himself. These leaders, referred to as princes in the Bible, were responsible for making decisions on behalf of the tribe, including when to move, where to trade, and how to resolve disputes within the group. The title of prince was not necessarily hereditary, but was often passed down through the family to the most capable leader. Religion played a central role in the daily lives of the Ishmaelites. Although the religious practices of the Ishmaelites are not well documented, we can infer that they, like other Semitic peoples, worshipped a variety of deities. The desert environment and their nomadic lifestyle likely influenced their religious beliefs, with a focus on survival, protection, and the provision of essential resources like water and food. In later Islamic tradition, Ishmael is seen as a prophet and a key figure in the construction of the Kaaba in Mecca, the holiest site in Islam. This belief highlights the importance of Ishmael in the religious history of the Arabian Peninsula, and his descendants are viewed as the ancestors of the Arab people. The Islamic pilgrimage, Hajj, to Mecca, which includes a visit to the Kaaba, is seen as a continuation of the legacy of Ishmael and his descendants. The descendants of Ishmael, while distinct in their own right, were part of the larger Semitic world that encompassed many different peoples and cultures in the ancient Middle East. The term Semitic refers to a language family that includes Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, and other ancient languages spoken by the peoples of the region. The Ishmaelites, as a Semitic people, were connected to other groups such as the Israelites, Edomites, and Midianites, with whom they shared cultural, linguistic, and religious ties. The Middle East in ancient times was a complex tapestry of interconnected peoples and cultures, many of whom were descended from common ancestors. The Ishmaelites were closely related to several other Semitic peoples mentioned in the Bible, including the Israelites, Edomites, and Midianites. The Israelites. As descendants of Isaac, Ishmael's half-brother, the Israelites shared a common ancestor with the Ishmaelites, Abraham. While the two groups had distinct histories and roles in the biblical narrative, their shared lineage connected them in important ways. The Bible mentions several interactions between the Israelites and the Ishmaelites, including trade and conflict. The Edomites. The Edomites were descended from Esau, the brother of Jacob, who was also known as Israel. Like the Ishmaelites, the Edomites were a Semitic people who lived in the southern part of the Levant, near the region where some Ishmaelite tribes also settled. The Bible often mentions the Edomites in connection with the Israelites, and the two groups had a long history of both conflict and cooperation. The Midianites. The Midianites were another Semitic people who were closely related to the Ishmaelites. They were descended from Midian, another son of Abraham, through his second wife, Keturah. The Midianites are frequently mentioned in the Bible, often in connection with the Israelites. In fact, Moses, one of the most important figures in the Bible, fled to the land of Midian after leaving Egypt, where he married Zipporah, the daughter of a Midianite priest. Intermarriages and alliances. Intermarriage between different Semitic groups was common in the ancient Middle East, and the Ishmaelites were no exception. The Bible and other historical sources mention alliances and marriages between the Ishmaelites and other tribes, including the Israelites. These intermarriages helped to strengthen political and economic ties between different groups, as well as to integrate various peoples into larger tribal networks. For example, in the book of Genesis, we read that Esau, the brother of Jacob, married a daughter of Ishmael. This marriage was likely intended to solidify alliances between the Edomites and the Ishmaelites, as both groups inhabited the same general region and had overlapping interests in trade and commerce. Similarly, the Ishmaelites are mentioned in connection with the Midianites in several biblical passages. In the story of Joseph, for instance, the brothers of Joseph sold him to a caravan of Ishmaelites who were traveling to Egypt. In some versions of the story, the caravan is described as Midianite, suggesting that the two groups may have been closely connected, possibly through intermarriage or joint trade ventures. The role of Ishmaelites in biblical history. The Ishmaelites play a recurring role in the biblical narrative, often appearing as traders, nomads, and sometimes adversaries of the Israelites. One of the most famous stories involving the Ishmaelites is the story of Joseph, found in the book of Genesis. In this story, Joseph's brothers, out of jealousy, plot to kill him. However, instead of killing him, they decide to sell him to a passing caravan of Ishmaelites, who take Joseph to Egypt, where he eventually rises to a position of power. This story not only highlights the role of the Ishmaelites as traders, but also serves as a key turning point in the biblical narrative, as Joseph's time in Egypt eventually leads to the Israelites' enslavement and subsequent exodus from Egypt. The Bible also mentions the Ishmaelites in connection with various military conflicts. In the book of Judges, for example, the Ishmaelites are mentioned as allies of the Midianites in their battles against the Israelites. While the Bible often portrays these conflicts in terms of Israel's struggle against its neighbors, the interactions between the Ishmaelites and other Semitic peoples were likely more complex, involving trade, alliances, and occasional conflicts over resources and territory. Over time, the 12 tribes of Ishmael expanded across vast regions, leaving a lasting impact on the ancient Middle East and North Africa. Their nomadic lifestyle, trade routes, and strategic settlements allowed them to establish a significant presence in regions ranging from the Arabian Peninsula to the Levant and even parts of North Africa. Let's explore the historical spread of the Ishmaelite tribes and the areas they inhabited, migration patterns, and expansion. The Ishmaelite tribes, being nomadic, had no fixed home base, which allowed them to adapt to different environments and migrate over large distances. Their migrations were driven by various factors, including the search for grazing land for their livestock, the availability of water, and the opportunities for trade. Initially, the Ishmaelite tribes settled in the Arabian Peninsula, which was their ancestral homeland. However, over the centuries, they spread into several regions. Arabian Peninsula. This region, including modern-day Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Oman, served as the heartland for the Ishmaelites. The desert environment required the tribes to adapt a nomadic lifestyle, moving between oases and following seasonal migration routes. Many of the tribes, such as Kadar and Nebaioth, established dominance in the northern parts of the peninsula, where they controlled important trade routes. Sinai Peninsula. The Ishmaelites also established a presence in the Sinai Peninsula, a region that served as a bridge between Africa and Asia. The strategic location of the Sinai allowed the Ishmaelites to control trade routes between Egypt and the Levant. This region is mentioned in various ancient texts, highlighting its importance as a crossroads for traders and travelers. North Africa. As the Ishmaelite tribes expanded, they also moved westward into North Africa, including modern-day Sudan and Egypt. Some historical accounts suggest that the Ishmaelites established settlements in the Nubian region, contributing to the cultural exchange between the Middle East and North Africa. The expansion into North Africa also facilitated the trade of goods such as ivory, gold, and spices. The Levant. The Levant, which includes present-day Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, was another key region for the Ishmaelites. The tribes of Jeter and Naish in particular are believed to have settled in this region. The Levant was a fertile area compared to the desert regions of Arabia, and the Ishmaelites took advantage of the rich agricultural land and trade opportunities. The Arabian Desert. The vast desert areas of the Arabian Peninsula, such as the Ruba al-Khali, empty quarter, were also home to the Ishmaelites. Although these regions were harsh and inhospitable, the Ishmaelites' expertise in desert survival allowed them to thrive in these areas. They established trade routes through the desert, connecting the Arabian interior with the coastal regions. Key regions of settlement. The Ishmaelites settled in various regions, each with its own unique geography and resources. Here are some of the key areas where the Ishmaelites made their home. Saudi Arabia. The heart of the Arabian Peninsula, modern-day Saudi Arabia, was a central region for the Ishmaelite tribes. The tribes of Kadar and Teima, in particular, are closely associated with this area. Kadar was known for its wealth in livestock, particularly camels and sheep, while Teima was an important oasis city along the trade routes. Yemen and Oman. The southern Arabian Peninsula, including Yemen and Oman, was another region where Ishmaelite tribes settled. These areas were known for their incense and spice trade, with the famous incense route running through them. The tribes in this region controlled valuable resources such as frankincense and myrrh, which were highly sought after in the ancient world. Jordan and Syria. The tribes of Jeter and Naish settled in the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula, near the modern-day borders of Jordan and Syria. These regions were important for trade and agriculture, with the Jordan Valley providing fertile land for crops and livestock. Egypt and Sudan. The expansion of the Ishmaelites into Egypt and Sudan facilitated the exchange of goods between the Middle East and Africa. The Ishmaelite tribes were involved in the trade of gold, ivory, and other luxury items which were transported from Africa to the Mediterranean world. The Levant. The Levant. particularly the areas near the Jordan River and the Syrian desert, was another key region for the Ishmaelites. The tribe of Nebaioth, for example, is often associated with the northern parts of the Arabian Peninsula and the southern Levant. The Ishmaelites' migration and settlement across these regions were not only driven by the need for resources, but also by their desire to establish trade networks. As expert traders, the Ishmaelites controlled several key trade routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula with the Mediterranean, Africa, and Asia. These trade routes were vital for the exchange of goods such as spices, incense, textiles, and metals. One of the most important trade routes controlled by the Ishmaelites was the incense route, which ran from southern Arabia, modern-day Yemen and Oman, through the Arabian Peninsula and into the Levant and Egypt. This route was used to transport valuable incense, such as frankincense and myrrh, which were in high demand for religious ceremonies and medical purposes in ancient civilizations like Egypt and Rome. In addition to the incense route, the Ishmaelites were involved in the Silk Road, which connected the Middle East with China and the Far East. The Ishmaelites acted as middlemen, facilitating the exchange of goods such as silk, spices, and precious stones between the East and the Mediterranean world. The widespread presence of the Ishmaelites across the Middle East and North Africa meant that they interacted with a variety of neighboring civilizations, including the Egyptians, Babylonians, Assyrians, and Persians. The Ishmaelites were not only traders, but also warriors, and their military prowess allowed them to defend their trade routes and expand their influence. The Ishmaelites' close interactions with these neighboring civilizations led to cultural exchanges that influenced the development of art, language, and religious practices in the region. For example, the Ishmaelites' use of the camel as a primary mode of transportation revolutionized trade in the desert, making it possible to transport goods across long distances. This innovation was adopted by other civilizations, enhancing trade and communication across the ancient world. In Islamic tradition, Ishmael, known as Ismail in Arabic, holds a position of great importance. He is considered not only the firstborn son of Abraham, but also a prophet in his own right, playing a crucial role in the spiritual history of the Arabian Peninsula and the formation of the Arab people. His story is told in the Quran, the holy book of Islam, where he is portrayed as a righteous man who submitted to God's will and was a key figure in the establishment of the Kaaba in Mecca, the holiest site in Islam. For Muslims, Ishmael is an ancestor of the Prophet Muhammad, the founder of Islam. His lineage connects Abraham, a central figure in Judaism and Christianity, with the Arab people and the Islamic faith. This connection underscores the shared heritage of the three major monotheistic religions, all of which trace their spiritual roots back to Abraham. The story of Ishmael in the Quran differs slightly from the biblical narrative, but retains many of the same elements. Like the Bible, the Quran tells the story of how Abraham prayed for a son, and Ishmael was born to Hagar, Abraham's second wife or concubine. However, in the Islamic tradition, Hagar and Ishmael's departure from Abraham's household is seen not as an act of rejection, but as part of God's divine plan. One of the most important events in Ishmael's life, according to Islamic tradition, is his role in the construction of the Kaaba in Mecca. The Quran describes how Abraham and Ishmael were instructed by God to build the Kaaba, a cube-shaped structure that serves as the focal point of Islamic worship. The Kaaba is considered the house of God and is the direction, Qibla, Muslims face during their prayers. The construction of the Kaaba is a key moment in the spiritual history of Islam, as it symbolizes the establishment of monotheism in the Arabian Peninsula. According to Islamic belief, the Kaaba was originally built by Adam, the first man, but it had fallen into disrepair by the time of Abraham and Ishmael. By rebuilding the Kaaba, Abraham and Ishmael restored the true faith of submission to one God, a faith that would later be fully realized with the arrival of Islam. Ishmael's connection to the Kaaba also ties him to one of the most important rituals in Islam, the Hajj pilgrimage. Every year, millions of Muslims from around the world travel to Mecca to perform the Hajj, a pilgrimage that is considered one of the 5 pillars of Islam. The Hajj is a physical and spiritual journey that commemorates several key events in the life of Ishmael and his family. One of the central rituals of the Hajj is the Sa'i, which involves walking back and forth between the hills of Safa and Marwa near the Kaaba. This ritual reenacts the story of Hagar searching for water for her son Ishmael when they were left in the desert. According to Islamic tradition, after Hagar's desperate search, God provided water in the form of the Zamzam well, a spring that still flows near the Kaaba today. Pilgrims drink from the Zamzam well as part of the Hajj, symbolizing God's mercy and provision. Another important ritual is the sacrifice of an animal, which commemorates Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son in obedience to God. In Islamic tradition, it is believed that Ishmael, not Isaac, was the son whom Abraham was prepared to sacrifice. This event, known as Eid al-Adha, or the Festival of Sacrifice, is celebrated by Muslims around the world and is a key part of the Hajj pilgrimage. Ishmael's legacy in Islam goes beyond his role in the construction of the Kaaba and the rituals of the Hajj. He is seen as a model of faith and submission to God's will, a prophet who played a crucial role in the spiritual history of the Arab people. His connection to the Prophet Muhammad solidifies his importance in Islamic tradition, as Muhammad is believed to be a direct descendant of Ishmael through his son Nebaioth. Ishmael's story is also a reminder of the shared heritage between Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. All 3 religions trace their origins to Abraham, and the story of Ishmael serves as a link between these faiths, highlighting their common roots in the worship of one God. For Muslims, Ishmael represents the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham that his descendants would become a great nation, a promise that was realized through the Arab people and the spread of Islam. The legacy of Ishmael and his descendants continues to shape the cultural, social, and religious landscape of the Middle East and the wider Islamic world today. Ishmael is a central figure in the religious consciousness of millions, particularly within Islamic tradition, but his influence extends beyond religion into modern cultural and geopolitical dynamics. Understanding the legacy of Ishmael offers insight into the enduring significance of his story and its impact on contemporary societies. In Islamic tradition, many Arab people, particularly those from the Arabian Peninsula, trace their lineage back to Ishmael. This belief is deeply rooted in Arab culture and identity, with Ishmael seen as the ancestral father of the Arab people. His connection to the Prophet Muhammad further solidifies his importance, as Muhammad is believed to be a direct descendant of Ishmael. Today, several regions in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Yemen, and Oman, are considered to be the ancestral lands of the Ishmaelite tribes. Many modern Arab families take pride in their heritage, believing that their ancestors were part of the tribes that descended from Ishmael. This lineage is not just a matter of genealogy, but also a point of cultural and historical pride, reinforcing a sense of identity that is tied to both religion and history. For example, the tribe of Quraysh, which the Prophet Muhammad belonged to, is believed to have descended from Ishmael's son, Nebaioth. The Quraysh tribe played a significant role in the development of Mecca as a center of trade and religion, and they were instrumental in the early spread of Islam. This connection to Ishmael is seen as part of the divine plan in Islamic tradition, linking the spiritual history of the Arabs directly to the legacy of Abraham through Ishmael. In the modern Islamic world, The story of Ishmael is celebrated during Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice, which commemorates Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son in obedience to God's command. For Muslims, this son is believed to be Ishmael. The annual celebration of Eid al-Adha, which coincides with the Hajj pilgrimage, is one of the most important religious observances in Islam. It involves the sacrifice of an animal, usually a goat, sheep, or cow, as a reminder of Abraham and Ishmael's submission to God's will. The rituals of Hajj also continue to honor the legacy of Ishmael. Each year, millions of Muslims travel to Mecca to perform the Hajj, a pilgrimage that is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Many of the rituals associated with Hajj, such as the sa'i, walking between the hills of Safa and Marwa, and the drinking of water from the Zamzam well, are directly linked to the story of Ishmael and his mother, Hagar. These rituals not only commemorate the faith and resilience of Ishmael and Hagar, but also serve as a powerful reminder of God's provision and mercy. The Kaaba, the most sacred site in Islam, also symbolizes Ishmael's legacy. According to Islamic tradition, Ishmael helped Abraham rebuild the Kaaba, making it the first house of worship dedicated to the one true God. Today, the Kaaba is the focal point of Muslim prayers and the central element of the Hajj pilgrimage. Its significance in Islamic culture cannot be overstated, as it represents the physical and spiritual heart of the Islamic faith. Beyond his religious significance, Ishmael's story has shaped the cultural and social structures of many Middle Eastern societies. The Arab tribes that descended from him played a crucial role in the development of trade networks across the Arabian Peninsula, the Levant, and North Africa. These trade routes not only facilitated the exchange of goods, but also helped spread cultural, religious, and linguistic influences throughout the region. In particular, the Arabian Peninsula continues to be viewed as the heartland of the descendants of Ishmael. The region's historical role as a center for trade and commerce, along with its religious importance as the birthplace of Islam, has reinforced the legacy of Ishmael in the collective identity of Arab nations. Even in modern times, the Arabian Peninsula's significance as a political and economic powerhouse due to its oil wealth reflects the continued influence of Ishmael's descendants in shaping the global economy and international relations. In regions such as Saudi Arabia, the legacy of Ishmael is embedded in the national identity. The government of Saudi Arabia, for example, takes great pride in its stewardship of the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, viewing its role as the protector of these sacred sites as a continuation of Ishmael's legacy. The Kingdom of Jordan also claims descent from Ishmael through the Hashemite royal family, further emphasizing the ongoing importance of Ishmael's lineage in shaping the political landscape of the region. Ishmael's legacy also has implications for the modern geopolitical dynamics of the Middle East. The shared ancestry between Arabs and Jews through their common patriarch Abraham highlights the deep historical connections between these peoples. However, this shared heritage is often overshadowed by political conflicts in the region, particularly the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Despite the tensions, the story of Ishmael serves as a reminder of the common ground between these two groups, offering a potential avenue for reconciliation through a shared spiritual and historical understanding. In recent years, some scholars and religious leaders have called for a greater emphasis on the shared lineage of Ishmael and Isaac as a means of fostering peace and dialogue between Muslims and Jews. This perspective encourages a re-examination of the historical narrative, focusing on the familial ties that unite rather than the divisions that separate. While the political situation in the Middle East remains complex, the legacy of Ishmael offers a potential framework for understanding the deep-rooted connections between the peoples of the region. The story of Ishmael and his descendants is a rich and multifaceted narrative that spans centuries and continues to influence the world today. From his birth as the firstborn son of Abraham to his role as the father of 12 tribes, Ishmael's life is a testament to resilience, faith, and the fulfillment of divine promises. His legacy is felt not only in the religious traditions of Islam, but also in the cultural, social, and political fabric of the Middle East. Ishmael's role in the three major monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, highlights his significance as a unifying figure in the shared spiritual heritage of millions of people around the world. His story, while often overshadowed by that of his half-brother Isaac, remains a crucial part of the broader Abrahamic narrative, offering valuable lessons about faith, survival, and the importance of family. As the father of the Arab people, Ishmael's legacy is particularly important in the Islamic world. His connection to the Prophet Muhammad, his role in the construction of the Kaaba, and his presence in the rituals of Hajj make him a central figure in the religious and cultural life of Muslims. The annual observance of Eid al-Adha and the pilgrimage to Mecca serve as powerful reminders of Ishmael's place in the spiritual history of Islam. Beyond his religious significance, Ishmael's descendants have played a key role in shaping the history and development of the Middle East. From their role as traders and merchants in the ancient world to their influence on modern geopolitics, the Ishmaelites have left an indelible mark on the region. Their adaptability, resilience, and ability to thrive in challenging environments reflect the enduring legacy of their ancestor. In today's world, the story of Ishmael offers a reminder of the deep connections that exist between the peoples of the Middle East. While political and religious conflicts often dominate the headlines, the shared heritage of Ishmael and Isaac provides a foundation for understanding the commonalities between Jews, Christians, and Muslims. This shared lineage, rooted in the figure of Abraham, serves as a potential bridge for dialogue, reconciliation, and mutual respect. As we look to the future, the legacy of Ishmael continues to inspire and inform the lives of millions. His story is not just one of the past, but a living narrative that resonates with the challenges and opportunities of the present. By exploring the rich history of the 12 tribes of Ishmael, we gain a deeper understanding of the ancient world and its lasting impact on the modern Middle East, a region where the legacy of Ishmael is still very much alive today.